A mother's choice. I never thought I'd be standing in my childhood home again after all these years. But here I was, watching my mother's face drain of color as she stared at the man beside me. My name is Elena, and I'm 52 years old now, though this story begins when I was just 24, fresh out of college and deeply in love with a man named Marcus. Marcus was 26 back then, tall and kind with warm brown eyes that crinkled when he smiled. He worked as an architect and had dreams of building homes that would shelter families for generations. We'd been dating for 2 years, and I knew without a doubt that he was the one I wanted to spend my life with. My sister Sophia was 22 at the time, beautiful and vibrant with long dark hair and a laugh that could light up any room. She was my mother's favorite, though Mom would never admit it out loud. Growing up, I'd always been the responsible one, the practical daughter who got good grades and never caused trouble. Sophia was the dreamer, the one who painted and danced and made everyone around her feel alive. I never resented her for it. I loved my sister with all my heart. But my mother, Catherine, had always worried about Sophia more. Worried that her artistic nature meant she wouldn't find stability, wouldn't find security. One autumn evening, I brought Marcus home for dinner, excited to share our news. We'd been talking about getting engaged, and I wanted my family to know how serious we were. The dinner started wonderfully. Marcus charmed everyone with his stories about his latest architectural project, and even my usually reserved father seemed impressed. After dinner, while Marcus and my father discussed baseball in the living room, I went to help clear the dishes. That's when I overheard my mother talking to Sophia in the kitchen. "He's a good man," my mother was saying, "stable, successful, the kind of man who can provide a real future." "I know, Mom," Sophia replied. "Elena's really lucky." There was a pause, and then my mother said something that made my blood run cold. "You need someone like that, Sophia, more than Elena does. Elena is strong, she'll be fine on her own, but you need someone to take care of you." I stood frozen in the hallway, unable to believe what I was hearing. "Mom, what are you saying?" Sophia sounded confused. "I'm saying that Marcus would be better suited for you. Elena will understand. Eventually, she always does." My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. I didn't confront them that night. I was too shocked, too hurt. Instead, I made excuses about feeling ill and asked Marcus to take me home. Over the next few weeks, I noticed changes. My mother invited Sophia to join us whenever Marcus and I had plans. She'd praise Sophia constantly in front of him, talking about how nurturing she was, how she'd make such a wonderful wife and mother. Sophia seemed uncomfortable with it all, but she was young and eager for our mother's approval, something she'd always craved. Then came the day that changed everything. Marcus asked if we could talk, and I knew from his expression that something was wrong. We sat in his car outside my apartment, and he couldn't meet my eyes. "Elena, I care about you so much," he began, and my stomach dropped because I knew what was coming. "But," I whispered. "Your mother came to see me yesterday," he said, and I closed my eyes. "She told me that she's worried about Sophia, that Sophia needs someone steady and reliable, and that you're strong enough to build your own life." "And you believe her?" I asked, my voice breaking. "She said you told her you weren't sure about us anymore, that you were having doubts but didn't know how to tell me." The betrayal cut deeper than any knife could. My own mother had lied to the man I loved. "That's not true," I said. "I never said that. I love you, Marcus. I want to marry you." He looked torn, confused. "But your mother seemed so certain, and Sophia, she's been so kind to me lately. And your mother said—" "My mother convinced you that my sister would be better for you," I finished for him, feeling numb. He didn't deny it. "I'm sorry, Elena," he said. "I think maybe your mother is right. Maybe Sophia does need me more." I got out of the car without another word. I walked up to my apartment, locked the door, and cried for 3 days straight. When I finally emerged, I made a decision. I couldn't stay in that city. Couldn't watch Marcus and Sophia together, couldn't face my mother's manipulation. So I left. I packed up my life and moved across the country to Seattle, where I knew no one and no one knew me. I threw myself into my career in marketing, working long hours and building a reputation as someone who got things done. The first year was the hardest. I missed my father, who'd been kept in the dark about what really happened. I even missed Sophia, despite everything. But I couldn't forgive my mother, and I couldn't watch my sister marry the man I'd loved. Through my father, I heard updates. Marcus and Sophia did get married within a year. My mother was thrilled, saying it was the perfect match. I sent a wedding gift but didn't attend, claiming work obligations. Years passed, and I built a new life. I dated other men but never let anyone too close. The trust had been broken too deeply. I threw myself into my work and eventually started my own marketing consulting firm. By the time I was 35, I was successful beyond anything I'd imagined, but I was also lonely. That's when I met David. He was 38, a widower with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He'd lost his wife to cancer 3 years earlier and was just beginning to open his heart again. We met at a business conference, and something about his quiet strength drew me in. Our relationship developed slowly, carefully, like two people who'd both been hurt learning to trust again. David owned a construction company, and we'd joke about how I marketed dreams while he built them. He was patient with my walls, never pushing, always understanding when I needed space. After 2 years of dating, he proposed, not with a grand gesture, but with a simple question one morning over coffee. "Elena, I know you've been hurt. I know you're scared, but I love you. Will you take a chance on us?" I said yes, tears streaming down my face, because I realized that I'd been given a second chance at love. We got married in a small ceremony with close friends. I didn't invite my family. I'd spoken to my father occasionally over the years, but had kept my mother and sister at arm's length. David understood. He never pushed me to reconcile, but he did encourage me to let go of the anger. "You're only hurting yourself by holding on to it," he'd say gently. He was right, but I wasn't ready. Years continued to pass. David and I built a beautiful life together. We traveled, we laughed, we supported each other through challenges in our businesses. He encouraged me to pursue my dreams, and I did the same for him. His construction company grew, and my consulting firm expanded to 3 offices. We never had children, it just wasn't in the cards for us, but we had each other, and that was enough. I thought about Marcus sometimes, wondered if he was happy, wondered if he ever thought about what might have been. But those thoughts became less frequent as my love for David deepened. By the time I turned 50, I'd made peace with my past, or so I thought. Then my father got sick. He called me himself, which surprised me. We'd maintained contact over the years, but it had always been brief, surface level. "Elena," his voice was weak on the phone, "I need to see you. There are things I need to say before it's too late." I flew home the next week. David offered to come with me, but I told him I needed to do this alone. When I walked into my childhood home, the memories came flooding back, both good and painful. My mother answered the door. She'd aged, of course. Her hair was completely gray now, and lines creased her face. But her eyes were the same sharp blue I remembered. "Elena," she said, and I heard something in her voice I couldn't quite identify. "Mom," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. Sophia appeared behind her. I was struck by how different she looked. The vibrant girl I remembered had been replaced by a woman who seemed tired, worn down. "Elena," Sophia said softly, "it's good to see you." "How's Dad?" I asked, not ready for small talk. "He's resting upstairs," my mother said, "but he's been asking for you." I went up to see him, leaving them in the hallway. My father looked small in his bed, diminished by the cancer that was stealing him away. "Dad," I said, taking his hand. His eyes opened and he smiled. "My strong Elena, you came." "Of course I came," I said, fighting back tears. We talked for hours. He told me how proud he was of what I'd built, how he'd always known I'd be okay. "I'm sorry I didn't protect you better," he said at one point. "I should have seen what your mother was doing, should have stopped it." "You didn't know," I said. "I should have," he insisted. "I was your father, I should have known." He made me promise to stay for a few days, said there were things that needed to be resolved. I didn't understand what he meant then. That evening, after my father had fallen asleep, I sat in the living room with my mother and Sophia. The silence was heavy, awkward, filled with 28 years of unspoken words. Finally, my mother spoke. "Elena, I owe you an apology." I looked at her, surprised. "What I did all those years ago was wrong," she continued, her voice shaking. "I convinced myself I was doing what was best for Sophia, but I was really just trying to control everything, trying to fix what I saw as her weaknesses instead of trusting her to find her own way." Sophia was crying softly, staring at her hands. "I destroyed your relationship with Marcus," my mother said. "I lied to him, I manipulated the situation, and I drove you away. I've regretted it every day since." "Why?" I asked. my voice harder than I intended. Why did you do it? My mother took a deep breath. Because I was afraid. Sophia reminded me so much of myself when I was young, artistic, impractical, and I'd struggled so much. I married your father because he was stable, not because I loved him, though I grew to love him over time. I didn't want that for Sophia. I wanted her to have security from the start. So you decided to give her my security, I said. Yes, she admitted, and it was wrong, so terribly wrong. I looked at Sophia, who finally met my eyes. I'm sorry too, Elena, I should have fought harder. Against Mom. I should have seen what she was doing, but I was young and stupid and I wanted Mom to approve of me for once. What about Marcus? I asked. Are you happy with him? Sophia's face crumpled. No, she whispered. I never was. He's a good man. But he was never mine. Not really. He married me. But he loved you. I could feel it every day. The ghost of you between us. My mother was crying now too. I ruined 2 lives trying to fix one, and I drove away the daughter who never needed fixing at all. I sat there, absorbing it all. Part of me wanted to rage, to scream at them for the years they'd stolen. But another part of me felt only exhaustion. I need some air, I said, standing up. I walked out into the garden. The same garden where I'd played as a child, where I'd once been happy. I called David. How are you holding up? He asked. I don't know, I admitted. They apologized. How do you feel about that? I don't know, I said again. Part of me wants to forgive them. Part of me wants to leave and never come back. What does your heart tell you? He asked gently. I thought about it, really thought about it, that I'm tired of carrying this anger, that maybe it's time to let it go. Then maybe that's your answer, he said. Over the next few days, we talked, really talked, for the first time in nearly 3 decades. My mother explained how her own mother had pushed her into a practical marriage, how she'd never pursued her dream of becoming a painter, how she'd projected all of that onto Sophia. Sophia told me about her marriage, how Marcus had tried to make it work, how they'd both tried, but how there was always something missing. Where is Marcus now? I asked. He's probably at work, Sophia said. He's coming by tomorrow to see your father. My stomach twisted at the thought of seeing him again. The next day, I was helping my mother in the kitchen when the doorbell rang. Sophia went to answer it, and I heard his voice before I saw him. My hands started shaking and I gripped the counter for support. Then he walked into the kitchen, and our eyes met. He'd aged too. His hair was graying at the temples, and lines marked his face, but his eyes were the same warm brown I remembered. Elena, he said, and I heard decades of regret in that one word. Marcus? I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. We stood there, looking at each other, while my mother and Sophia slipped out of the room. I heard you did well for yourself, he said finally. Successful business, good marriage. I did, I said. David is wonderful. I'm glad, he said. And he sounded like he meant it. You deserved happiness. So did you? I said. Did you find it? He looked down. No, I can't say that I did. I tried, Elena. I really tried. But I married the wrong sister. I knew it on our wedding day, but I was too proud to admit I'd made a mistake. Why did you believe my mother? I asked. The question I'd wanted to ask for 28 years. Because I was young and stupid, he said. Because your mother was so convincing. And because some part of me wondered if maybe she was right. If maybe Sophia did need me more. But she didn't. I said. No, he agreed. She needed someone who could love her for who she was, not someone who was trying to love her because he'd been told he should. I failed her and I failed you. We all made mistakes, I said, surprised to find I meant it. We talked for a while, not about what might have been, but about what was. He told me about his architecture firm, about the buildings he'd designed. I told him about my business, about David. It wasn't healing exactly, but it was closure, and sometimes that's just as important. Later that evening, I sat with my father again. Did you see Marcus? He asked. I did, I said. And it's over, I said, really over, not the angry over, but the peaceful. Over. He smiled. Good, you deserve peace, Elena. Dad, can I ask you something? I said. Anything. Why didn't you stop Mom back then? He sighed. I didn't know the full extent of what she was doing until it was too late. By the time I pieced it together, you were already gone. I should have come after you, should have made you stay and fight for what you wanted. But your mother convinced me you needed space. Did you ever tell her you knew? Yes, he said. I told her what she'd done was unforgivable. That she'd broken our family. She's carried that guilt every day since. I stayed for a week, helping care for my father, talking with my mother and Sophia, slowly rebuilding bridges I'd thought were burned forever. One afternoon, Sophia and I sat in the garden together. What will you do? I asked, about Marcus. I think we're going to separate, she said. We should have done it years ago. We've been more like roommates than spouses for the last decade. I'm sorry, I said. Don't be, she replied. You were right to leave, right to build your own life. I should have done the same instead of letting mom's guilt keep me trapped in a marriage that wasn't working. It's not too late, I said. You're only 50, you have time to start over. She smiled. When did you get so wise? When I stopped letting other people's choices define my life, I said. My father passed away 2 weeks later, surrounded by family. His last words to me were, don't waste any more years on anger. Life's too short. I didn't. At the funeral, I stood between my mother and sister, united in grief, even if we weren't fully healed. David flew in for the service, and when I introduced him to my family, I felt proud of the life we'd built, proud of the man I'd chosen. After the funeral, as David and I prepared to fly back to Seattle, my mother pulled me aside. Will you come back? She asked. Not to live, but to visit? I thought about it. Yes, I think I will. Thank you, she said, tears streaming down her face. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. Maybe not, I said. But I deserve to let go of the anger, so that's what I'm going to do. 6 months later, Sophia and Marcus finalized their divorce. Marcus moved to Portland to start fresh. Sophia stayed in our hometown and, at 50 years old, enrolled in art school to finally pursue the dream she'd given up. My mother and I talk on the phone now, not every day, but regularly. She started painting again, something she hasn't done since before she married my father. As for me, I'm back in Seattle with David, living the life I built from the ashes of my heartbreak. Last week, we celebrated our 17th wedding anniversary. Any regrets? David asked as we toasted, with champagne. I thought about Marcus, about what might have been, about the years of anger and pain. But then I looked at David, at the man who'd loved me patiently and completely, at the life we'd created together. Not a single one, I said, and I meant it. Because here's what I learned. My mother's manipulation, Marcus's betrayal, even my own heartbreak, they all led me to where I was meant to be. Sometimes, the worst thing that happens to you becomes the catalyst for the best thing that could have happened to you. I didn't need Marcus to complete me. I needed to complete myself. And that's exactly what I did. Now, at 52, I'm happier than I ever imagined possible. I have a husband who loves me, a business I'm proud of, and a family I'm slowly learning to forgive. The girl who left home at 24, heartbroken and betrayed, wouldn't recognize the woman I've become, and I'm grateful for that, because I'm not that girl anymore. I'm stronger, wiser, more compassionate. I'm someone who learned that true strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up, dusting yourself off, and building something beautiful from the rubble. My mother thought Sophia needed Marcus more than I did. She was wrong. Neither of us needed him. What we needed was to find ourselves, to build our own strength, to stop letting other people's expectations define our worth. It took 28 years, but we finally learned that lesson. And now, finally, we're all free. I still think about that autumn evening when my world fell apart sometimes, but not with anger anymore. Instead, I think about it with something like gratitude. Because that betrayal, painful as it was, pushed me to become the woman I am today. And I really like who that woman is. So thank you, Mom, for breaking my heart. It taught me how to put it back together stronger than before. Thank you, Marcus, for choosing my sister. It forced me to choose myself. And thank you, Sophia, for taking what I thought was mine. It showed me that what's truly yours can never be taken away. Life has a funny way of working out, not always the way we plan, not always the way we want, but always somehow the way we need. And that's the most valuable lesson of all. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience, forgiveness, and second chances. Leave a comment below sharing your own experiences with family challenges or unexpected life changes. Your story might inspire someone else who's going through a difficult time. Thank you for listening, and remember, it's never too late to build the life you deserve.